that once you put henna on your hair, it slowly fades away and then it's gone. But what if I told you that that's not true and that henna lives in the hair shaft forever? I'm Cyn Doll and welcome to my channel where we talk about the wonders of nature and its benefits for healthy hair, skin, nails, gut health, and so many other things. And today we are celebrating almost 200,000 subscribers, so thank you for sticking around. And today we are going to dive into henna. What is henna, you ask? Well, henna is a plant that has been used for centuries, and today we are going to talk about the pros and some of the very serious hair cons that henna possesses. So if you want to get to the bottom of it and get to the facts, then make sure you stick around to the end of this video. You know this plant as henna, but the scientific name for henna is Lawsonia enormis. Lawsonia enormis is the name that henna goes by in the plant herbal world. This evergreen tree, or some call it a shrub, heavily scented with a beautiful aroma, growing over 20 feet tall. It has narrow pointed leaves and beautiful either white or pink flowers and blue or black berries. Ooh. It's native to North Africa, the Middle East, and the Indian subcontinent. Henna grows in sunny areas and can be used for hair coloring and hair restorative properties, and we're gonna get into the ins and out of those. Some really great pros and some really serious cons. The best time for cultivation of this plant is during its growing season. The leaves and bark are used in so many amazing ways because this plant is a freaking powerhouse. This organic compound within henna goes towards the amazing sweet scent that henna has. Next up is this powerhouse, flavonoids, which gives henna its amazing antioxidant and other beneficial properties. This one here is an organic compound found in plants that have so many different functions. Check the blog for more information. All 5 of these properties go into making henna as wonderful as it is, but the one that we're going to talk about today is this one. Lawsone is the powerhouse in henna that everyone is going crazy about. Henna is literally a professional cosmetologist's nightmare because it leaves molecular breaks within the hair shaft. Lawsone is the main little thing within henna that gives everybody the color that they're talking about and the thing that helps you color skin, but it is also a cosmetologist's nightmare. Why? It's because of the way that henna works. Most people think that henna does not penetrate the hair shaft, but that could not be further from the truth. Let's break it down. The hair shaft is broken down into 3 layers, right? You have the cortex, you have the cuticle, which is produced of dead hair cells, and then you have the cortex where the bonds of your hair live, right? The salt bond, the disulfide bond, and the hydrogen bond. But when we're coloring the hair and relaxing the hair, changing the texture of the hair, anything like that, we are talking about the disulfide bond. Again, learn more, video or blog post below. This is a molecule within henna that penetrates the hair shaft until it gets to the cortex, and then it binds to the proteins within the hair. In videos before, I told you that when we're talking about curly hair, right, the more protein linkages you have, the more protein you have within the hair shaft, the curlier the hair is. So once you put henna in your hair, it penetrates the hair shaft and it binds and links itself to the protein within the hair shaft, and then and then on top of that, it leaves behind it a hue of a color on top of the hair shaft, and that hue and that color fades away over time, but the linkage within the hair shaft, the linkage within the cortex is permanent. It is always there. So this is what cosmetologists mean by henna is such a nightmare, because it puts permanent links on the cortex of the hair shaft. And this is why in the hair hair world, when you're talking about hair color and color correction, we talk about henna as something that creates molecular bricks, right? And that's just a way of saying like small little itty bitty little molecules, little small little itty bitty microscopic bricks within the hair shaft. This is why if you go in for a color consultation, right, if you want to get hair color and you go in to see a colorist and she asks you if you've had henna on the hair, before you can do any type of hair color, you have to get the henna removed, and it's a very hard process. Because a lot of times the henna and the henna's formulation will have a really bad reaction to professional hair color, and so it's like a nightmare because it's almost impossible to get henna out of your hair without damaging the hair. That's why if you have henna in your hair and you need it removed, you need to go see a professional. Whenever you make a henna paste and you put it on your hair, you activate this compound within henna, and it instantly penetrates the hair shaft and attaches itself to the disulfide bond within the hair shaft. So because this form of henna is a protein, what happens is if you are a person who has low porosity hair, then henna ends up really damaging your hair over time, because somebody with low porosity hair is a person whose cuticle is tighter. This doesn't mean that, oh, it's damaged, like, oh, you have a low porosity hair so it's so hard for it to open. No, don't look at it like that. Look at it like, okay, you have low porosity hair, so the products that you use need to be a little bit more energizing, right? Like with tea tree in it, or like peppermint in it, or with the rosemary, something that'll give you a little massage. Your scalp need a little massage before we start. But there is nothing wrong with low porosity hair, right? But because the cuticle is already tight, the purpose of a protein treatment is to strengthen and to enforce something. So if you have low porosity hair, your cuticle already strong, girl. So by you putting henna on your hair, you're giving yourself a protein treatment. This is why across the natural community, henna is something that is a real big favorite, because if you are a person who has damaged hair in any way, shape, or form, and you put henna on the hair, henna is going to penetrate your hair shaft and it is going to attach to your disulfide bond. That's it, and that's all. So when it attaches to the disulfide bond, it gives the illusion of like fuller, thicker and shinier hair, because it is going into the disulfide bond and filling it up. But if you have high porosity hair, it's not really as bad over time. Like you can do it for like 20-30 years and be good if you have high porosity hair, and if your habits are those that cause damage. For example, if you're a person who uses apple cider vinegar all the time and you use henna, you are going to feel like henna makes your hair feel so good, because apple cider vinegar is an acid and it's constantly putting holes in the hair shaft. And then when you go put henna in it, henna fills those holes, because henna penetrates the hair shaft and then links to the protein that is your hair shaft. It links to the disulfide bond, which in return fills up the hair shaft that was once thinner and shrunken. So it makes your hair look thinner and fuller and shinier, right? So that's not a problem when you think about it in the short term, but long term, even a person who has high porosity hair, if you keep filling the cuticle up with henna, eventually the cuticle will explode. Check this video out here so you can learn more about hair shaft disorders, and this specific hair shaft disorder that a lot of women who use henna have. And this hair shaft disorder here is one that causes the hair shaft to expand and then eventually cause rips and tears within the hair shaft. Link in the description box. Learn more. As these molecules attach to the disulfide bond, it creates a long-lasting color that never unlinks, and it leaves behind it, you know, a radiant color on the hair shaft that initially fades away, but within the hair shaft, that pigment always lives there. It only fades on the outer layer of the hair shaft, and as your hair grows out, then once it falls out, it's out. But you cannot remove henna from the hair shaft unless you get it chemically removed. Even though henna sounds great, and it is for some people, the real formation of henna is a protein treatment. Henna is a protein treatment that leaves behind permanent pigment within the cortex of the hair shaft, and the pigment that you can actually see is only temporary, but the pigment that it connects to, when it connects to the cortex, lives there forever unless you disconnect that pigment from the cortex of the hair shaft. Again, if you are a person who has low porosity hair and you are protein sensitive, any type of protein treatment is going to damage your hair, and henna within itself is a protein treatment. It has so many amazing benefits though. Make sure you check the link in the description box below to learn more about henna and the other ways that you can use it without damaging your hair. But henna really doesn't go in your hair unless you're trying to give yourself a protein treatment, but then I wouldn't do that because there are other forms of protein treatments you can give yourself that are not permanent. For example, if you go get a protein treatment like one of these on the screen, once you rinse it out, that's it. You're not using a product that is penetrating your hair shaft and permanently staying there linked forever. You're literally just using a product for a second to help your follicles rebuild, to help your hair shaft rebuild or replenish itself, right? To use something that is going to penetrate your hair shaft and link to your disulfide bond just to give yourself a protein treatment, when there are other things that you can do that won't be a permanent linkage, you can do that. Because even with hair color, right, this is a subject that I was really kind of like, oh, I don't know if I want to get into this, because it's kind of like worse than rice water, you know, because so many people have been using it for so long. But the main reason that people use henna instead of professional hair color is because they think that is less intensive. They think that it's something that's not penetrating the hair shaft, but using henna on your hair will penetrate the cuticle and the cortex and have a permanent linkage to your disulfide bond, versus if you were to get a rinse or use like Beautiful Browns or something like that, there is no permanent linkage. It's not even penetrating the hair shaft. That's why sometimes if you have gray hair and you use Beautiful Browns, it's not going to show up because it's not penetrating. It's only putting a layer on top of the hair shaft, right? So that's something that I really want you to think about. Even with gray hair, sometimes with gray hair, henna is definitely gonna color it if you use the right one. That's because henna is going to penetrate the hair shaft and attach itself permanently to the disulfide bonds. But I've had so many clients book me and have excessive balding and shedding from using henna, and they didn't really know that that's what it was from. But once we're on the one-on-one and we're talking for a while and I'm listening to all of their patterns and everything is good, except for they have low porosity hair, but they use henna all the time to color their hair and can't figure out why their hair is breaking. This is why. Henna is a protein treatment, and an excessive protein treatment. The actual henna plant is amazing. It has so many amazing properties from its original source. Learn more about it in my blog post, but as it pertains to the hair shaft, it is a protein treatment. So if your hair is sensitive to protein, you should never use henna in your hair. And if you are only using henna because you think that it is something that is very and it's because you think that it's something that is not damaging to the hair shaft, and it's something that you can do, it's something that you can do to color your hair without damaging your hair because it's not permanent and there's no permanent leakage and all of that. That's not true, because the way that the pigment is able to stick to your hair is this property penetrates your hair shaft and creates a permanent linkage. It creates molecular bricks on top of the hair shaft, which and then in return releases pigment that only lasts temporarily on the hair shaft. All right, so if you are a person who is experiencing protein overload from henna, then I want you to follow the different steps that I'm going to leave you in the blog post listed below.